got to where they are. So why don't you take us back to the beginning of your story before you got into virtual wholesaling made simple, when you did your first deal. Take us back to the beginning and then lead us up to today.
Sure, I love that. Thanks for asking. So, when I first started my journey in real estate, I started like most people with kind of like a hunger and a drive to be successful in real estate, but not knowing really where to turn because there's so many different ways that you can make money in real estate, so many different options, right? And it can be very overwhelming. And so that's what happened with me, right? And so I was at my church one Sunday and I went to a buddy of mine who I knew was successful, but didn't know if he was in real estate. And I just told him that I had a desire to get started in real estate. I remember when I was back in college, I came back from a party one night sitting on my couch and I saw those Dean Graziosi late night infomercials. And I was one of the people that called in about the book. So that kind of planted the seed. So when I was talking to my buddy, he was like, "Have you ever read Rich Dad Poor Dad?" And I said, "No." So I went out and got the book, read it that night, stayed up to like 3 a.m. I was totally blown. My mind was totally blown with, just these new concepts that I wasn't taught growing up. And so from there, I was that weekend, I was checking my email at my girlfriend's house, who's now my wife. And there was a banner ad that came up that said Robert Kiyosaki was coming to Tampa. And I'm like, man, this is my opportunity. I'm going to meet this guy, tell him he's changing my life, and I'm going to do whatever I have to do to be able to get into real estate. So obviously, we got to the event and he wasn't there, but his team was there. And they showed a lot of different ways you can get started in real estate over the next 3 days, right? And on the last day, they took this whiteboard, put it at the front of the room, and they drew all the different ways you could get started. They talked about real estate development. They talked about commercial real estate. They talked about sandwich lease options. They talked about, renovating properties, landlording, and then they landed on wholesaling. And this was perfect for me because when they said you could basically take a piece of paper, flip it, and make, five, 10, $15,000, and you can do this multiple times a month without investing any of your own money into the property or using your own credit, I was like, man, this is it. So I looked at my girlfriend and I said, "Hey, this is what we're meant to do." She said, "Let's do it." We went back to the room, talked to one of the coaches, and hooked up with a boot camp, right? So we drove to Miami to kind of learn more about real estate. And I'd love to tell you after that boot camp that our first deal happened right away. We retired, and everything was fantastic, but that's not what happened. What happened next was it took me about 6 months to land my first deal. And then after I landed my first deal, we hired a coach. We started to understand like how to become more focused in our business. And then from there, things really took off. 2 years before COVID, we decided to go to a virtual model, right? Because we were just exhausted from working 60 to 80 hours a week, driving around, meeting sellers at night, overseeing buyer showings. And it was crazy. And so we said, what if we could just do this over the phone without meeting sellers in person? So we tested it and gradually ramped up to doing 100% virtual. In our third month of doing this virtual, we had 22 deals under contract.
Damn.
So yeah, so during the pandemic, which a lot of real estate investors were really having a hard time, that was actually one of our best years we've had in business. And then we
Hmm.
grew our business to over 7 figures, wholesaling houses virtually from home, and left our corporate jobs after just 3 years. And we've been doing
Nice.
this for the last 13 years altogether.
I love it. I love it. So I have to ask, your first wholesaling check. It seems like the common number that everybody hits, and even my first wholesale that I did way back when, I made $5,000, and that's so. Anytime people mention wholesaling, I like to ask, well, how'd you make on that? How much did you make on that first deal?
Yeah, so my my first deal that went through was kind of bananas. I actually made $4,000, so you got me by a
All
grand.
right, all right.
But yeah, that was a very interesting deal. I had to get two extensions with the seller. They were, bless them, they were like the nicest people in the world. That's the only reason why I went through. We had to get two extensions with the seller. Had a bunch of buyers come through the house wearing like tank tops and like flip flops, and we're telling them these are our investor partners, and the sellers are looking at us like, what in the world's going on here? And yeah, so we ended up getting that buyer. We found him from a bandit sign, actually. This is when we were doing it
Wow.
locally, and that
Wow.
was
This
our
is
first
actually
deal for $4,000.
nice. I love it.
Yeah.
Since then, you guys, I mean, you mentioned you went 100% virtual,
Yep.
and that is I feel like that is a difficult model to master, especially when it comes to wholesaling, because sellers are so. Especially if you're talking about residential. I've switched over to commercial since then, and it's a little bit easier to do commercial, just because sellers aren't as emotionally connected to these properties. But
Less
in the
distrust.
residential side, people get so emotionally connected, and it's difficult to get them to sign when you're not in front of them, when you don't have face to face talking with them. So how do you guys set up? How do you make virtual actually work for you?
Yeah, great question. So it all comes down to being able to follow a simple step by step process. So when we're talking with sellers over the phone, right? Um, Believe it or not, virtual is actually easier than doing it in person. And here's why. When you're in person and you're driving to the seller's house, they're looking at everything. They're looking at the car you pull up in, they're looking at
Mm,
your clothes, they're looking at your body language. So they're not just hearing what you're saying, but they're also like, looking at what your body language says, right? And if you're not aware of your body language, that can actually turn people off without you even like realizing it, right? And then on
mm,
top of that, they're looking at how you look at their home when you walk through their house. And a lot of these houses are not in the best shape. Maybe there's like cat pee everywhere, newspaper stacked up, hoarder houses, right? And it can be a lot for people who are just getting into this for the first time. And then also for people who are brand new, it can also be a little intimidating. If you've never bought a house before, now you're going to talk to a seller and you're standing in their living room telling about a cash offer on their property. It's a lot to take in, right? But when you're doing this over the phone, what makes it easier is all they care about is, can you solve their problem? That's it. They're not looking at you, what you're wearing, which car you drove in, all the body language and all that stuff. So there's a lot less variables and it opens the doors to allowing you to become successful much faster. And really what it comes down to is, are you practicing active listening? So are you listening twice as much as you talk, right? We want to ask questions and listen because people want to feel heard. And if sellers feel heard, they're going to trust you. You don't have to build a bunch of fake rapport like, hey, you like fishing, I like fishing, you like dogs. Oh my gosh, I happen to like dogs too. That stuff is gone from the 80s and 90s, doesn't work anymore. And all people care about today is, do you care about them or do you just like look at them as a paycheck, right? Because we've won a lot of deals from wholesalers who look at sellers like paychecks, and they'll come to us and be like, hey, I want to work with you guys. And I'm like, doesn't make sense. Like he's offering you $20,000 more. And they're like, yeah, but he's a jerk and I don't want to work with him. I want to work with you guys. So in the short, like long of the short of it is, you win deals by listening and actually caring about people and solving problems.
yeah, easy peasy. So on you guys, when the students that come into your program, you say they are your goal for them is to make $20,000 in 90 days. 90 days, especially if you're new, it's a very short time frame to figure out how this business works. So I know you guys probably have some good systems in place. Walk us through the steps that you take these new investors on how they get started and how they can actually close that first deal. Well, I'm sure it's not closing the first deal in 90 days, but get it under contract in 90 days.
Yeah, yeah. It's either get under contract or close. So,
Okay.
so how we do this basically is, first step as a virtual wholesaler is you want to identify a good territory for wholesaling. Now, there's a lot of regulations that have come out on wholesaling, right? Some states require real estate license, some don't. Some have disclosures that you have to provide to the seller. Some have disclosures you have to make in your marketing to buyers, right? But it really comes down to states that don't require a real estate license. And typically we
Mm,
find is the red states. I'm not going to lean political one way or the other, but the red states we found are much easier to wholesale in because typically they're title states. They use what's called a title company, a third party company that closes real estate transactions and transfers ownership from the current owner to your buyer, right? So that's kind of like the foundation to start. And then from there, what we do is we use a free tool called Google. Most people have heard of it. And we look at the population in an area, right? So, okay, we found a red state we want to work in, or we're thinking about starting in, right? Maybe even we're looking at our own territory. So, what we do is we take a county in that area, right? And we'll go to Google and we'll type in that county, that state, and then population size. What we like to look at is areas that have population size, counties that have population sizes, minimum of 250,000 people. Anything less than
Wow, that's
250,000
actually
people,
pretty
you're going to
low.
be more
Yeah.
in like a rural type territory. It's going to be hard to get results. You'll have a lot of sellers who say yes, but it's going to be tough to get buyers in those areas, right? So then that's the first
And
check
so
mark.
I'm just jumping in here real quick to
Sure.
clarify. So you are talking about county and not city, because I usually, generally the rule of thumb that I give people when they ask me where do I get started, I say
Hmm.
look for a city that has a minimum population of 100,000, and you're
Yeah.
saying you're looking at an entire county, and that
Yes.
whole county you want it to be 250,000 or more.
Yes. The reason for that is because when we go to do our marketing later on, we want to
Mm,
have enough to be able to get 10,000 records from that area. And if we're only focusing on a city, typically just one city won't have enough records to pull. When I say a record, I mean enough homeowners that are distressed and fit our specific criteria to be able to reach out to first. Right.
got
And
it.
so that's
Okay.
why we look at a county from the county wide, because typically with the county you have 10, 15, 20 zip codes, and then it becomes really easy to be able to hit our number and like really focus on that area.
Yep. Makes
So
sense.
so that's a great question. I have a lot of people like ask me about that. So the
Hmm.
second piece to that is we look at we take the county and the state, again, go to Google and we type in median home price. So the reason the median home price is important, it's because that is the most common type of house that's being bought and sold in this area. For people who are listening that don't know what that is, if you picture houses on a timeline, you have $50,000 and less houses on the left, multi-million dollar house on the right. The median is the one in the middle. It's the most common type of house being bought and sold. We need that to be a minimum of 200,000 and no more than 450,000,
Wow,
because that
200 is
range,
really low.
say again.
200 is really low. I'm surprised, yeah, I'm surprised you're looking at those those markets.
Yes.
That's really low.
Well, you got to think it's all perspective, right? Because I believe you're in Seattle, Washington, right?
Mhm.
Washington prices are through the roof. I think the median home price there is like 650,000, something like that.
Yeah, something like
So the areas that we've had the most success in, and what we found like the most of our buyers are looking in, those buy and hold investors, those fix and flippers for residential, the main areas they're looking for is between 200 and 450,000 after repaired value. So they're actually wanting to buy these houses for somewhere between like 100 and 350,000. So
wow.
a buddy of mine does this in California. That's hard for him to grasp too. But when I got him started in Florida, he's like, "Oh my gosh, this is so crazy."
Yeah, it is
So
it's a trip when you're, marketing to different states. Just the drastic difference in home values, between California and Iowa and Ohio, and
totally.
it's crazy.
Yeah. So those two things are our check marks that we look at. So that's the first step, is identifying a territory, and that's how we do it. The second step is finding our buyers, right? See, a lot of wholesalers are told if you find a good deal, it'll sell itself. Don't worry about the buyers; the deal will sell itself. But the catch is most new wholesalers starting out, they have no idea what a good deal looks like. So how could it sell itself? So
Yep.
what we do is we actually show our clients how to go find their buyers first, how to build a massive buyers list, and then find out what your buyers want. Put together your marketing based on what the buyers want, the types of properties they want, the zip codes they want to buy in, how, the square footage of the properties they're looking for, right? And then you go find the perfect deal and bring it to them. When you do that, wholesaling becomes so much easier. So our number one method that we like to grow our buyers list, it's free, and it's using Facebook groups. If you go on Facebook and you type in real estate investing in whatever city or county that you're in, chances are there's a group there. If there's not, probably not a good area to start in, right? But if there is, you're going to have wholesalers in that group, cash buyers, realtors in that group, all investor friendly. And what you're going to see is wholesalers posting deals in there. And this is great because in the comments of those deals, you're going to see people saying, "I'm a buyer, I'm a buyer, I'm a buyer, I'm a buyer," right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to take these email addresses, we're going to send them an email, and to see if, let them know we saw their comment on a post in the such and such group and want to see if they're still actively buying in that area, right? And then on top of that, we're going to add them as a friend and shoot them a DM on Facebook, and then see if we can connect with them that way, kind of hitting them from both sides. And we're going to add 5 people a day to our list. That's our goal. And they can be one of 3 people. It can be a cash buyer, it could be a wholesaler or a realtor, because one of these, all these contacts, Either they're going to buy your deal or they're going to get more eyeballs on your deal. And in a wholesaling, being a sales and marketing business, the more eyeballs you have on the deal, the better chance you're going to get it sold.
Nice. I like it. So you will reach out to other wholesalers to see if they have somebody in their network that's would be interested in buying that same deal.
Yes. So in the beginning, when I first started my journey, I thought I just wanted to have cash buyers on my list, but that was a big mistake. It kept my list small and I wasn't selling any deals. But then
Mm,
I realized that wholesalers could work together, right? Another wholesaler out there, he may have a buyer's list of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 people, right? And I send him the deal. He taxes fee on top of what I'm going to make, right? I send him, I basically tell him, hey, I want to get 200,000 for this. He sells it to his buyer for 210. He keeps the 10,000. I net whatever I get from the 200,000 and everybody's happy. Right. And that's when we started selling a lot of deals.
yeah, makes sense. So let's talk about the specific targeting for that you guys use to reach out to the sellers. So
Yes.
you've built your list of buyers.
Mm-hmm.
Who are you actually reaching out to? How are you identifying the motivation of the seller? Because in my opinion, that's the most important piece of this puzzle is actually finding people who are willing to who are who need to sell, who want to move their property. They're tired of it. They just want to get out of it.
Yeah.
So how are you guys building that list and how do you do the outreach?
Yeah, great question. So now is a better time than ever to get into wholesaling because the market has flipped. We were in a seller's
Mm,
market before, where there was more buyers than sellers, but now the market's flipped, and now there are more sellers than buyers. And so with that being said, there's a lot of motivation and a lot of people out there looking to buy deals, and so you're going to start to see sellers becoming a lot more flexible right now than they were before. Before they realized they could get a lot of money for their property. Now they're coming down to reality a little bit more. So what we do to find these sellers is we target motivation, right?
mm.
So we're looking for homeowners facing foreclosure. So maybe they're in pre-foreclosure. Homeowners with maybe they're 2 years behind in their property taxes. Maybe we're looking at tired landlords, landlords who have owned properties for 10 to 15 years, so rental properties, and they just went out. They're tired of tenants and toilets. And bonus, if you target tired landlords who live in another state than their property is located, those guys are going to be incredibly motivated because most of the time, the reason that happens is they became a landlord by mistake. They had their house they lived in, their job relocated them. They didn't have time to sell the property. Maybe they had that emotional attachment, didn't want to sell the property, and they became a landlord by mistake, and they're having a hard time getting it rented. The last tenant trashed it, whatever. These guys are incredibly motivated, and sometimes they have multiple properties, which is also good. So really, what we're looking for in this market today is we're looking for distress, fire damage properties, code violation properties, right? There's an endless list of motivated sellers to go after in this market, especially if you know like the right list to pull and where to get them. And then
And if
our
you use
number
something
one
like
method, good.
uh, for people who want to actually go and pull these lists, if you use something like Property Radar, it's what I used to use, and I think it was like $120 a month or something like that. They have pre-built lists like this. They have something that's literally it lists tired landlords. They have
Yeah.
pre-foreclosure. They have tax delinquent, all that kind of stuff. So it's not you
Yeah,
don't
I've
have to
heard
actually.
Property Radar is like really big on the West Coast. But
Okay.
the main software that we use is Batch Leads,
Oh,
and it
okay.
does the
Yeah.
exact same thing. So to your
Nice.
point, you just want to have a software that you can go in that has a lot of these lists like preset for you, so you can literally just like click and download.
I did not
Um,
know Property Radar was more Western focused. That's
yeah, I
interesting.
think they started in California.
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
only know this because I have some friends that live in California, and that's solely what they use. And I'd never heard of them over here on the East Coast.
Mm,
But I heard they have really great data. But yeah, so we use batch leads because it's simple, right? Like there's a lot of complicated softwares out there that really kind of get into it, but batch leads is very simple. And I'd be
mm.
happy to provide your audience a discount code where they could get 50% off their first month and a 7-day free trial. So we use that to pull our lists. And then we use a dialer, batch dialer, because our number one method for reaching sellers is cold calling.
Mm.
Um, 90
Cold
days
calling,
of
okay.
cold calling will give you a 10-year education in sales and marketing. And you could be talking to motivated sellers today. So that's why we do it.
One question on cold calling. I've gone back and forth on how to reach out to seller. Well, we do commercial now, so we focus on mobile home parks, RV parks, and self storage facilities.
Hmm.
And so it is different between residential and commercial. But I have gone back and forth on how what's the best way to do cold calling when it comes to like a single line dialer or a three line dialer. Three line
Yes.
dialers I've actually gotten worse results on just because there's people hang up and you don't really get good connections. I don't know, what's your take on that one?
Yeah, great question. So there's two types of dialers you can use. You can use a single line dialer, right? You can use a triple line dialer, and it really depends on your list size, right?
Mm,
So if you have a small, really hyper motivated list, like you probably have in commercial, right? Commercial lists are not as big as residential. Residential, you could have like tens of thousands of records. Commercial,
mm,
you might have like 500, right?
okay.
So if you have a list that's like 100 contacts on it or less, I'd recommend using a single line dialer because you're not going to burn through records. What does that mean? That means a triple line dialer is going to fly through that because it's calling multiple lines at once. When one person picks up, it's going to hang up and move on to the next person. So you run the risk of not getting all the juice out of that list, right? But with a triple line dialer, where you want to use that is when you're targeting lists that are over 100 records. So you're
Mm.
going after 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 records, and you need speed. You need that dialer, right? You're sacrificing some connections so you can dig through the dirt faster to find that gold.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Um, and are you guys who is actually doing the calling? Are you guys outsourcing to the Philippines, to Egypt? Is there a specific area? Are you hiring people in the US? How are you guys doing the outreach?
Yeah, so I started out making the calls myself initially, and I did that to land my first one or two deals from cold calling. And then from there, that's when I decided to hand it off. So we have our own call center over in
Mm.
Bangladesh,
Oh
and
wow.
our callers just are dialing through around 250,000 records a year, calling homeowners. Trying to dig through the dirt to find that gold, submitting them to our team, our teams, and putting them under contract and getting them sold. But if people are brand new and they're first getting started, to go through the work that I went through to have the call center, it's a lot. So what I recommend you calling first to get your deal. And then there's a company that we partnered with recently called Lead Mining Pros, which are amazing. And they have all that taken care of, right? And so they call on residential, they call on like single family houses, land, and it's really like a done for you system. And that's who we recommend to all of our clients.
You said lead mining pros.
Lead Mining Pros. Yep.
Cool. All right. Okay. So then they built their list. They're starting the calling. What are the tips that you can give for the conversation they have with the seller? How does the conversation go? How do you start it? And
Yeah.
then how do you broach that question? What would you like for your property?
Yeah, great question. So here's how we typically do it. Now we start our conversations much different than everybody else, and who knows, maybe everybody else will be starting them the way we do it after listening to this podcast. But we don't want to sound like some big corporate investor. Homeowners don't want to talk to that. They're getting slammed from different ways of calls and everything like that from all these big companies. They want to deal with a Joe local home buyer guy, right? So what I do, and we taught our team to do, is we start off very differently with one line. And that line is this: Hi, I hope I have the right phone number. Is this John? Right.
Okay.
And the reason we say we hope we have the right phone number is because a professional company wouldn't do that. They know they have the right number. They think they have the right number. Also, people are kind of weirded out with Big Brother. Like,
Mm,
even though people know their information's out there, like they don't want it thrown in their face.
yeah.
So we do that. And from there, they'll say, yeah, this is John. Who's this? Well, hey, I know that you don't know me, but I'm a local home buyer in the area and came across your property at 123 Main Street and wanted to see if you consider a cash offer on your property there. Right. And at that point, he's going to say either yes or no. If he says yes, great. Our process is really simple. Mind if I ask you a few questions so I can learn a little bit more about the property and see if it's going to be a good fit for me? And there's some psychology there when I said, you mind if I ask a few questions so I can see if it's going to be a good fit for me? I'm the reluctant buyer. I'm not
Mm,
chasing them. I'm the
mm,
reluctant buyer where I'm like, I don't even know if this is going to be a good fit, but let's have a conversation and just kind of like see how it works out. Right.
okay. Yeah.
Um, Sellers can feel
That's
that.
actually a good tip because, especially even myself when I, call sellers, commercial property owners, and I usually start out with, to see if we can come to an agreement, if we can find it as something that works between the two of us. But if you just
Yes.
say, does this fit my criteria? It kind of puts them on the back foot because they're realizing, wait, this isn't, I'm not being pursued. I have to actually put forth the value just like the other person does, and we have to actually reach an agreement. So yeah, I like that. That's first time I've heard of it.
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the reason we love it, because for a long time I was doing it the same way, and I literally felt like I was chasing sellers and like they had the power dynamic. So I
Hmm.
wanted to flip that. And so I learned this actually from a guy by the name Joe McCall. He's been in the space for a long time. And when I heard it the first time, I wrote it down and started using it. So that's something that really helps a lot doing that. So from there, if he says yes, great. So the next step, we want to get the 4 pillars of motivation, right? And we want to get this on every single call. So that is price, timeline, condition, and motivation. So we want to get how much they're asking for the property. You know, when it comes to timeline, how long have they been thinking about selling? And what's made like now different? Like, why do they want to sell now versus like 6 months ago, right? Um, Condition, we want to ask them, have they done any remodeling in the kitchen or bathroom in the last 5 years? That's a really good way to
That's, yeah.
find out the condition, right? And then
Yeah.
lastly, the motivation. So, Mr. Seller, like, what's got you wanting to sell? A lot of times, wholesalers will take whatever answer they get there and like that's their motivation. They want to move to Michigan, right? That's not the motivation, right? We're looking for the motivation behind the motivation. Got it, Mr. Seller. So, what's got you moving to Michigan, right? And then there they're going to open up, oh, I'm getting older. It's, I'm not as healthy as I used to be. The house has just become a lot. I want to be close to the grandkids. Like my son just had 2 daughters, and I want to be closer with them and spend the rest of my life like being with them. Really? Well, let's talk about how we can make that happen for you, right? And you can go, if you really want to dig in the motivation, like you could get into kind of like a picture perfect scenario where you're like, hey, what would that look like if you were able to spend more of your time with them every single day as opposed to like now, right?
Mm,
And they're going to
mm.
be like, wow, it'd be amazing. And so you can really dig deep in the motivation. But one of the things we share with all of our clients is that a good seller call is like a 30-minute call, right?
Oh wow.
If you
Okay.
spent 30 minutes on the phone, then that means you're spending the most of your time on the motivation, and that's great, right? If you keep it short and transactional, then it's going to be tough to do deals. But
Mm,
if you're asking really good questions and really kind of digging into the why, the motivation, when it comes down to how much they're hoping to get for the property, they'll tell you that. And if they give you any objections when you come back to make your offer, you can circle back to those things. Okay, well, Mr. Seller, you mentioned that you were looking to get to Michigan so you could be closer to your granddaughters. Like, I'm curious, like, if you don't move forward with me, like, how's that going to happen? Right.
yeah.
And so it really just gives you that ammo to kind of cement that, right? And make that really real. So that's how
Mm.
we're having the conversations with the seller. If they say no, right? I'm gonna give you another tip. Mind if I give you one more tip here?
I love it. Bring them.
Cool. So a big mistake that people make when they're cold calling is if someone says, "No, I'm not interested in selling," they say, "Okay, thank you so much. Have a great day." Don't do that, right? If anyone is listening here, do not do that, right? What you want to do, because you're losing out on 25% of the opportunity. So what you want to do instead is you want to say, "Got it. So I know you don't want to sell this property, but do you have any other properties you may want to sell?" Right? Maybe something that needs to be fixed up. And at that point, they're going to say, no, I really don't. Got it. Do you have any friends or family that's maybe looking to sell a property? Something that needs to be fixed up. No, I don't. Okay. So is there anybody that's like on your street that maybe you want them to sell? Their
Have you
fence is
ever
like
met
creeping over in your
anyone?
yard.
That's funny.
So we're going 3 levels deep. And if they say no, you've exhausted all opportunity.
Yeah, that's funny because I just watched a video from, I don't know, one of those YouTube guys like Alex Ramosi or something, and he was talking about the best sales guy in his division in his company, and he asked like, how are you doing? What are you doing that's making you so much better than everybody else? And it turned out that all he was asking was, hey, do you know anyone else that would be interested in this product? And that was it. It was
Yes.
just one question at the end of the call. Hey, can you give me a reference? and
Yeah.
and that was what made him so much better. And it's interesting because it's not a natural thing to usually ask, and so you, at least for myself, I have to be very cognizant of, hey, do
Yeah.
you have any other properties? Do you know anybody else? Something like that.
It's yeah, you're right. It's not natural. It wasn't natural for me either. But when you have this like written down on like a sticky note and it's on your desk when you're making calls, and at the end of the call you look down, you're like, oh hey, by the way. So
Yeah.
makes it easier.
We've blown through our time, but before we move on to the quick question round, I just have to ask. You know, I'm on commercial; it's what I do. So, do you guys reach out to commercial properties as well? And is there any difference between residential and commercial when you approach the sellers?
So we don't reach out to commercial because a lot of things change after 5 units or
Mm,
after 4 units. A lot of things changes, right? Like the due diligence changes, like how long that is. A lot of the variables, like how you evaluate the properties. Like there's other layers of complexity that make it
mhm.
very difficult for people who are just starting out in wholesaling to get. Commercial draws like a lot of attention because of the big money you can make in it. And you can make a killing in commercial, right? But for people just getting started in the beginning, starting with wholesaling is great because it gives you that foundation of fundamentals, and you can use these same exact systems over in commercial. So everything that I've shared with you so far, the only difference is there's different software. Like for example, Reonomy is a software where you can pull lists in commercial and you can pull some really really good data there. Like you can find people who have private loans that are maturing, and those are like really hot, especially like right now, right?
Mhm.
You can find people with different layers of motivation. If you're in commercial, I would not recommend using any residential softwares that combine both because usually they're not accurate at all,
The
right?
data is just garbage. I've tried to use a
Garbage.
property radar for commercial properties, and it's garbage.
Yeah, they have good stuff for residential, but when
Yeah.
they try to cross over, it just commercial's so different, you know.
Mhm.
But one thing remains constant, right? As a wholesaler, we're a sales and marketing business, and that can be applied to literally anything. So just kind of like you started out, sounds like in wholesaling, like applying these things, like these are things that people in commercial are not doing. So it can give you like a really big leg up on other people who are just like going straight in there and don't have that experience.
Cool. I love it. All right, man. Well, with that, I'm going to push us into the quick question round. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. It starts with education. It could be any form. It could be a conference you've gone to, a mentorship program you've been a part of, book you've read, movie you've seen. Could be anything, but I need two recommendations, one for general life wisdom and then one for real estate.
Yeah. So general wisdom. I would have to say, and this is a mentorship program, you said?
It could be any form of education, a mentorship program, conference, book, movie, whatever.
Yeah, I would have to say my mentorship with Tom Kroll. Tom Kroll founded Wholesaling Inc. He got out of that, and now he is, I think he sold the company, and now he's like a coach for coaches. And the dude is just like loaded with wisdom. I've learned so much from him. Um,
Nice.
and then the second one was what?
Real estate or business specific.
Oh, real estate or business. The real estate or business
Actually,
mastermind that
that
I
could have
learned a
been
lot from was Bill Allen and seven figure flipping. Those guys are amazing. And what they showed me how to do is scale my business to seven figures once I was around 350,000.
nice. And I want to point out that both of those are mentors or mentorship programs or some type of person that you're learning from.
Yes.
So many times people will reach out and they're like, "How do I learn how to do something?" The best way to learn is just to go either hire somebody or partner with somebody who's already done it because
Yes.
they're going to be able to shorten your learning time frame so quickly. And reading a book, watching YouTube videos, it'll give you a general idea, but it's nowhere near the wisdom that you'll get from somebody who's actually done it. All right, so moving us on to the next question. This is for your younger self. Let's go back to the Chris who was just going to that webinar or that seminar that he went to so many years ago. Go back to him, look him in the eye, give him one piece of advice moving forward.
Yeah, I would have bought more properties sooner.
That
So out of
that
four
is
properties, I would have wholesaled three and kept one.
That sentiment has been echoed across many episodes, and anytime somebody says something like that, I put it into the bucket of "I wish I got started sooner." And
Yeah.
we always point it back to you, the listener. If you have not, if you're thinking about getting started in real estate, this is your kick in the pants. Go out there, just get a deal done. It doesn't have to be the perfect deal. It doesn't have to be, something flashy and shiny. Just get a deal done. You're going to get the ball rolling, and you're going to be thankful that 10 years down the line that you started today. So With that said, we're moving on to the next question. This is about the U.S. You've already mentioned that you like counties with 250,000 or more. So let's whittle that down to the single metro or county that you are most excited about investing in today.
The single one, man, there's a lot. Single metro or county that we're excited about investing in today. I have to stay partial to the Tampa Bay area of Florida. Like I love Tampa Bay. There's so much opportunity here. There's over 1.5 million people between the three counties, Hillsborough, Pinellas, and Pasco counties, and there's always going to be plenty of opportunity here. So I love it here.
Nice. And this is my ignorance being across the country. Where is Tampa? Is that South Florida?
That's West Florida. It's on the west coast of Florida.
West
So we
Florida.
have the best
Okay.
beaches. I
Yeah,
grew up
there
on the
you
East
go.
Coast.
I've only been to Florida once. We took a cruise down to the Caribbean, and I think we left out of Tampa. I think I think I've been
Yeah.
there, and I didn't even know where it was. All right, moving us on to the next question. This is lessons learned. Not every deal that we get into goes the way we expect it. In fact, many times, if not every time, something goes wrong. But that's when we get to learn a lesson. So, what was a deal that went a little bit sideways for you, and then what was the lesson you pulled from it?
Yeah, so a deal that went sideways for me was the time that we stepped outside of our buy box of what we usually buy, and that was my lesson I took from it. So I'm just going to front load that. We bought this wood frame property. We thought we were going to make like around 100 to $150,000 on it, and long story short, we ended up losing $100,000 on it because yeah, everything you could think of went wrong. Right, like we had to relocate the kitchen in the house. We had to level the floors in the house. We had to redo the foundation.
Oh,
Like anything and everything you could think of that could possibly go wrong in a property. And then we didn't also realize that a two-bedroom house wouldn't, even if it was the same square footage, like it would not command the same prices that like a
mm,
three-bedroom or a four-bedroom was. And
mm,
ours was the ugly duckling in the neighborhood. It looked
mm.
nice, but it was the only two-bedroom house in the neighborhood, and we didn't realize how much that would impact sales, so it did.
Nice. And so
Yeah.
the lesson there was stick to your criteria. And that's
Yes.
stick
If
to your
you
due diligence, the whole thing. Just do not ever step out of it, especially on the commercial side. If it's been a while and you haven't closed a deal and you really want to get something done, it's so tempting to just say, "Oh, it's not that bad. We can fudge here and we'll be able to fix it up." But don't do that. You're always
Yeah.
going to regret it. Stick to your criteria.
Yep.
All
A
right.
mentor told me, "Don't be a deal creator, be a deal finder."
There you go. That's a great way to put it. All right, and on the other side of that, there is deals that just go perfectly. So let's talk about your highlight reel. If you could think back onto one deal that is just your favorite deal, everything the stars aligned. Go back to that and give us the story behind it.
Yeah. So, a deal that I really feel like showed us what's possible in this business is the deal that we made our first $29,000 on. And I had no idea you could make that type of money in wholesaling. And so it was this wood frame property in this up and coming neighborhood. We didn't realize it was an up and coming neighborhood until after we got the deal in our contract, and we found that builders were knocking down houses in this area and building up like, half a million, $600,000 houses, right?
Hmm.
So we got the deal under contract, and we flipped that contract to a builder of which we had that list already. And so they took it. And by the time we closed, I want to say we closed within 3 weeks, we had a check for 29,000 bucks, and I actually used that to get my wife's ring and get us on the path to getting married. So,
There you go. I love it.
yeah,
Lesson there is look for the path of development. It is out there. You can find that data, and if you follow it, that is where appreciation will definitely hit you in the right way. So,
totally.
all right, and that leads us to the very last question. This is for the listeners. You've given us a lot to think about. Why don't you give us two way or sorry, what is the ending? I always forget. How can people reach out to you? And then what is the best way, or what can people expect when they reach out? And what is the best way for them to reach out?
For sure. Yeah. So I'm most active on Facebook. So the best way to reach out to me is through Facebook. My username is Chris Logan, REI. And on my Facebook page, I actually have a link to a free group called Virtual Wholesaling Made Simple. And you can go there. You can kind of learn the ins and outs of virtual wholesaling. We do free trainings in that group every Wednesday at 6 p.m. EST. And I'll be excited to connect with you and learn more about your journey and see you in the group.
Perfect. I'll put that link in the show notes. So if y'all want to reach out to Chris, all you got to do is just click that little more in the description. It'll pull down that full description. In there, you can find his links. All right, man.
Awesome.
That wraps it up. Thank you very much for hopping on the show.
Awesome, Gabe. I had a blast, and thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. For everybody who's with us today, thank you guys for showing up. You are the reason we do this. So if you guys have any questions, reach out to me, Gabe at therealestateinvestingclub.com. If you guys want to support the show, leave us a review. Other than that, hope you guys have a great week. Keep rocking real estate, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.